What's up with all my savages, man? Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Savage Studios. If you like this video, go ahead and smash that like button, subscribe, and when you subscribe, hit that bell notification so that way anytime I drop a future video, you're notified. Today I kind of woke up. I was actually thinking about Corcoran. I was thinking about Corcoran shoe, and the first time I had met Charles Manson's crazy ass. See, first thing first, you got to get that coffee. But see, Charles Manson, I had started going to Corcoran shoe around 2012, late 2012, early 2013. And through the course of all the way to 2015, I used to always see him back and forth, back and forth. He was always, somehow always around. Was I in the same pod as him? Never, obviously not. And there's gonna be a lot of people who don't really understand how the fuck Corcoran shoe works, at least on 4A side. So I'm gonna try to break it down as best as possible, so that way you guys can have some kind of understanding of what the building dynamic is. So in Corcoran shoe, you got 4A and 4B. 4A consists of 4A, one left, one right, two left, two right, three left, three right, four left, four right. Those are all blocks on a yard. Left and right are both sections, or no, they're both buildings, but a part of the same, small buildings, part of the same building, if that makes any sense. So Charles Manson was in a unit called PHU, Protective Housing Unit. This is like the queen ant of protective custody. So that unit, which was just one unit, it wasn't a building, it was just one unit, and it was A section. And 4A, 4 right, A section, right? So you still had 4A, 4 right, B section, and C section that were not PHU. So I want to say it was 2013 or so. I'm chilling, I'm hitting some burpees and shit with my celly, the good homies, hitting my burpees and shit. And the homie, he had already told me, he had came back from a medical or some shit and had told me one day that he had seen Charles Manson. And we all knew Charles. We were in 4A4 left at the time, which is just right across the way from his building. But I said, okay, cool. So the next day we go out to yard. Okay, here's another image I'm going to paint. They run these yards, they're cage yards, and they're right in front of these buildings, right? And they're just two rows. One row and another row behind that row of individual cages. Picture cells outside, chain link type of look, chain link fence type of look, but all four walls and the ceiling, right? With a little pull-up bar in there and a sink. Before they didn't have the pull-up bars, they barely put them in there a few years back. So, in front of us, which is in front of 4A, 4 right, they got a yard, and it's fenced off. It's not a cage because it's a lot bigger. It's like the whole front of their little walkway is a big fence, and they got like a little small garden and shit. They got a wall where they play handball or whatever. They have like these little bands where they can exercise with, and that's where these dudes go to yard. And this unit consists of like high notoriety inmates who really need protection from every other inmate, period. Because as we all know, even in SNY, you'll get got. So this PHU consisted of like Charles Manson. You had another old dude named I don't want to say his name wrong. I want to say it was maybe like Juan Corona or something like that. He was a very famous for killing all these immigrant workers in Corcoran in the fields. His workers, instead of paying them, he was burying them in the fields. A lot of them. One of the guys who had kidnapped that girl, Stacy Duger or something like that. I can't remember, but there was a lot of high end dudes in that unit. Is what I'm trying to say as far as like trophies wise, right? What I mean by trophies is, if you hit them, you become your name will circulate big time. So, anyways, I'm at yard and this old little short shriveled up dude with no hair. I've always pictured Charles Manson with some kind of mohawk or some crazy shit like you always see. He had no hair, no facial hair, really short dude. He comes up to the gate and puts his hands on the gate and is just sitting there holding the gate, staring at us. And we're on the first row of cages, so we're about 10, 15 yards away from him. And I told my celly, I'm like, man, look at that chomo, fool. And my celly looks over and he's like, hey, fool, he's like, that's Charles Manson. I'm like, that's Charles Manson? He's like, yeah, fool, that's Charles Manson. No sooner than he said that, Charles Manson started talking. He said, he first started saying, it's hot, because it was about 115. He's like, it's hot out here, huh? And I was like, yeah, yeah. I didn't really even acknowledge him. And then he went on to say, I wish I could be in those cages with you guys, but they won't let me. Anytime they move me, it makes headline and frontline news. So I was like, oh shit, it probably really is this fool. So I'm like, there was a wood next to the cage next to me, and he took initiative, and what's up, Charlie? He was like, what's up, Charlie? And Charles Manson was like, hey, he's like, whatever his little greeting was, hey, yeah. He goes like, he starts talking and shit, but for some reason Charles not focused on him. He's focused on us. So I tell him, I said, okay. I said, hey, I had read all his books, I had seen, movies and shows. They had just came out with, I think it's one called Aquarius or some shit. So I had some questions, that I wanted answered. So I said, hey, Charles, I said, what's up with Freemasons, because he had been charged during his trial for trying to give some certain hand sign, I think it was some kind of hail, to the judge, or DA, to get less time, because they have this rule of Freemasonry where they can't really convict each other, but he got more time for that. And then he told me his exact words were, yeah, I've been there, and he just stared at me. So I was like, okay, that's probably the rest of the answer I'm gonna get. Another big thing was his whole theory on the Beatles, right? If you don't know about the Beatles and Charles Manson, he believed that they were talking to him through the music and so on and so forth, So I asked him, I said, hey, Charles, you still listen to the Beatles? And he's like, no. He's like, I used to listen to him. I don't listen to him no more. But when he said it with like a certain level of like resentment. So maybe he was pissed that whatever he thought never came to fruition. And then I hit him with the juiciest one. I said, Charlie, I said, what the hell is up with Helter Skelter? What the hell was all that about? He looks at me and he says, Helter Skelter was full of shit from the beginning. I looked at my celly, I was like, damn. He looks at me and he says, the only thing I regret is that I wasn't able to kill them all. I said, damn, right? So that was the first time that I had really met him or talked to him. And I thought I got somewhere because a lot of the shit I was hearing was pretty cool shit. I think that's maybe why he kept talking to me, because I wasn't like these other inmates asking him stupid shit and just trying to talk to him. I had some real questions that I had actually, read books about, and I wanted to ask him some questions. So later on, probably about a month or so, he gets in trouble. He gets caught with the cell phone. And in that unit, if you get in trouble, they move you to our unit. And you're still segregated, but we get to see you come out to medical, go to showers, whatever. And it's just uncomfortable for them, I guess you could say. Because in their unit, the cell doors don't close. They just program all fucking night. So they move him to our unit. And I remember one of the homies, he was a Crip. He was next door to him. And he, Charles Manson, let's just say he was very financially giving in our unit. He was the type to buy packages and order packages for people. And he did so many times that it became a problem that the cops actually moved him to another block, or probably put him back in his own block. I don't know where he went after this. But I actually was working on a drawing, big drawing, and it was a possessed piece that somebody had requested me to like do. They wanted to see me, get down on it, and I was always looking for new ideas. So I did this Pope piece, which I ended up later on tattooing. So I do this like possessed Pope and all this crazy dark art, and I'm like, screw it, I'm talking to the homie downstairs. I'm like, man, I'm gonna see if I can send this down to him and see if I can get this dude to sign it. So that's what I do. I finish up the drawing. It's badass. I send it downstairs. I'm like, look, make sure he signs it on the front, bro. I need him to sign it on the front. Man, they sent me the drawing back like 4 days later. I'm pissed. I thought it was a lost cause. I get it, and it's signed by Charles, but on the back of the damn thing. So nonetheless, it's a signed piece. So I sent it to my stepdad at the time, and saying our relationship is strained is an understatement, whatever. But when I get out the shoot months and months later, he has the nerve to tell me, hey, you know, you shouldn't be hanging around that dude. And because he doesn't really know that I'm not hanging around him. So I don't know what he did with the drawing to this day. I don't talk to him anymore. And I know you're going to say how convenient, but screw you. I want my fucking drawing back. And then you know what they used to do? I used to even go to visit. I used to walk to my visit. You know, when you're in the shoe, you walk, you know, shackled up in your jumpsuit or whatever. And he used to walk alongside me with all his COs, and he'd be pushing his little wheelchair, and you know, he'd be right next to me, not so close to where I can actually. But if I was out of my cuffs, he'd only be like 3 or 4 yards away from me. I could get his ass. But and then there was times they'd walk him actually right through our cages, right between our cages, which is only, man, I could reach out like this and touch cage to cage, literally. So he'd be like in the middle where I'm at with his little colored glasses and his little X on his forehead. And one time they stopped him right in front of our cage. And I had crutches. I had wooden crutches at the time because I had rolled my ankle bad, man. My shit was like a football. So I remember I used to always take my crutches apart. And I just remember looking at him thinking like, dude, I could drill this fool. I could stick my crutch through the gate and just run it right through his neck, right? No more talking. Because you know, anyone who knows about his story knows that the owner of the CEO or whoever of the Folgers company actually put a hit out on him, $1 million hit out on him. So at the time I was real you know, dark. I was in a dark place. I wasn't really too confident on coming home. I didn't think it was gonna happen, and you know, I was just lost, you know, so I was going to be the one that was willing to do that. But it was just more of a brief thought that was cool. But then it was just like, nah, I'm not about to kill this dude right here in cold blood because I am trying to go home at some point. So that basically was one of the last times I seen him. You know, he'd come out to yard, he'd play his guitar and shit. He'd come out and you know, he was getting old, he was getting crazy. He'd be whoa, 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 you know, woofing at the damn sun and playing these crazy tunes on his guitar, you know, drunk as hell. And I remember just thinking to myself, like, at the end of the day, how long has this dude spent in prison? This guy's been in prison for a very, very, very long time. So, hey, I don't know what it was, but I woke up today thinking about this story, thinking about crazy ass Charles Manson. I don't like the motherfucker. I don't glorify the motherfucker. I don't got his back in any way, shape, or form. But sometimes, you know, he was a piece of prison history. It would have been the same thing if I would have met, you know, some ancient big homies who started the whole shit, you know. It's like society hates them too, but it still would have been pretty fucking badass to have met them. I'm just saying. Um, I know, like, if anyone's seen the Alpha Dog movie, they had the dude from Alpha Dog. If you haven't seen the movie, check it out. It's pretty badass. But they got the dude from Alpha Dog. He was in Pleasant Valley years back, and he was buying everyone TVs. And then you got the Melendez brothers. They're floating around SNY, but they're common to see. I think they're in Mill Creek right now. One of them was in Donovan, and they do the same shit. You know, they buy people TVs and shit. Then you had X-Rated in Pleasant Valley. He was SNY, and I remember the Northern Riders actually had hit him. The Northern Riders were the ones who got him, and so you kind of just float through the system, and you kind of do see, you know, you do see people that kind of were high notoriety. And it's times like this that I wonder, where the fuck is Suge Knight gonna end up? Where will Suge Knight go? You know, where will he be and do his time, and who will see him? You know, and then you had the dude who was in Austin Powers, the Asian dude that was in Austin Powers that throws his hat and shit. And he's got the tuxedo on. He ended up getting busted, I think, for like some kind of murder or something like that. And while he was in reception, killed his cellie. So you know, you know, no one's too great or high up on the food chain to ever see prison or jail. Just like Robert Downey Jr. hit Corcoran before. Tim Allen's been in prison before, so it happens. But just wanted to share a quick little story, little tale with you about Charles Manson's stupid ass and how he signed my drawing on the back, and how I don't know where the hell it's at now, and how it's probably worth a nice little pretty penny right now. But that's it, man. Thanks for tuning in, y'all. Go ahead and smash that like button if you like the video, and feel free to subscribe. You know, have a good day and stay safe and stay aware. Deuces.